For me, it was, again, working my way up to that. I didn't come in as a CEO. I started at the bottom, kind of came up to that point. So I think that for me, it's always going to be continuing to open that door for other people to know that, they absolutely can have a voice and they should have a voice and they should be able to sit at any table that they want to.
It still hits, I don't miss it. Just go, 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 like a go, go flow. And I'm almost known, and I told you so. When I throw these flows like it's Rochambeau, and I ain't too close to the Joe Smoke goes. And I'm on my grind, that is all the time. I do not do breaks, that's right, I stay in dry. And look, I'm back with a little bit of that, a little more cash than it came in with. Ready, that cat is out that bag, but I still ask you, the boy got skills. I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me, I got this. I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both, even do this, word.
This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All On The Stacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On The Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn.
What's up, everybody? This is the On Stacks podcast. I'm your guest host, Jimmy T. Martin, here at the Blue Door Studio, protected by Ritchie Security Solutions. With me today is Lindsay Griffin-Boylan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so happy to have you. Oh my gosh, this is my first time hosting the show. Bill sends his thoughts. So he is here in this room, even though he's not here in this room. He's given me a lot of responsibility to not screw things up. So we're gonna see how things go today.
We're gonna do the best we can, but I'm super pumped to be here. It's my first time too, so.
Look at that. Bunch of firsts here today.
Yes.
The one thing that's, I don't know if it is a first, but we were talking before we were live about your tattoo, because I literally just saw a reenactment, or not reenactment, I saw a clip of Steve Jobs at his, speaking at the Stanford speech. He has a speech during the commencement speech, "Stay hungry, stay foolish," and I literally saw it on your forearm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably something. I mean, people may know because it is on my arm. But,
yes.
People may not know, but yes, I have "Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish" tattooed on my right arm, and it's actually in my dad's handwriting. So something that was always very important to me. My dad's been a huge influence on me always, and always supported me throughout all of my years, but always reminds me of those two phrases essentially, and something that he always said when he heard that reminded him of me and kind of the journey I've been on throughout my life. So I actually got this tattooed on me. It's in his handwriting, and it just really reminds me that I don't know, throughout my day, just to kind of be excited about life, stay hungry, like keep learning, keep doing things, and also to stay foolish, though, to have fun, to really enjoy myself. And I think that can get lost a little bit sometimes in all of us. So it's a nice reminder that's really with me, like no matter, I'm right-handed, so I see it constantly.
All the time.
It's a great reminder for me. So yeah.
I mean, look, I don't know if you look at it during lunchtime, you're like, I'm not hungry anymore. I'm pretty full, but that's the foolish part coming out of me. But yeah, no, mine, I got a Sakyant. I have a few tattoos. This I got in 2018 when I was in Thailand with my wife, and it's a Sakyant tattoo. So it was done by a monk there.
That
and
very cool.
The significance here, it kind of goes up pretty a little high, but you just tell them where you want it on your body and what your intention is in your life, and you don't know what you're going to get. So I could have gotten anything.
Wow.
So it's a lot of trust here.
That's a lot of
so that's the theme of this podcast is the trust factor here between you and I. But it basically means white guy who loves pizza, because there's a big slice of pizza up here, and that's so significant moving back home here in northeastern Pennsylvania. But no, it's it's about like protection and leadership and all those things. And the problem was I got this before we did the elephant sanctuary, so I had to like cover my arm in a garbage bag because I didn't want to have the elephant water, the very clean elephant water, getting me an infection. But this light bulb I got that 2 years after. It has a sort of a pen inside as the filament. I have something on my chest in honor of my late wife, and then I have a tattoo on my back, which was the first one that I got, that says cool. Fortitude Vincimus, which means by endurance we conquer. It was I think it was on the ship of the gentleman that went to to Antarctica, Captain something. I wish I would remember that, but again, tattoos mean so much. It's really great to hear the symbolism behind that. Yeah. Most people don't know, we basically see each other every single day.
We are,
for better or for worse.
We live very close to each other.
That's right.
Which is excellent. So we do get to see each other often. And yes, I've gotten to connect with you, which I think is, definitely one of the things that I love so much about this area, obviously in my job too, but is like hearing about people like us, like especially that kind of were from this area, maybe went out for a little bit, but really realized how great it was and came back here. And I think we both definitely share that in common. So, and I know right now we do live very close to each other, which is cool. We get to see each other in that way.
Totally, yes.
And then obviously in our professional world too. So
exactly.
Very cool.
Now, in terms of, and thank you, I'm glad to be back. It's been about 4 months since I've moved back from my 13-year experience in New York City. That definitely is a second home for me. But, growing up in this area, it's kind of seeing how things have changed, but also a lot has stayed the same. I mean, it's just nice to be able to, I think it's the responsibility of people who do leave, whether it's for college reasons, for jobs, to be able to come back where you started and to, help take those experiences and apply them back home here. Was that sort of your experience? Did you, you said you were born and raised in Whitehaven. Is that where you grew up?
Whitehaven, yeah. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I, was born and raised in Whitehaven. My parents were small business owners. They owned a flower shop. So saw my parents work very hard when I was younger.
Oh my gosh.
I actually was a Hazleton girl. So I went we lived right on the border of Crestwood and Hazleton.
Okay.
So I went to Hazleton, went to Bishop Afey High School actually.
Okay.
So
okay.
Freeland Elementary, Bishop Afey High School. And then really I was never, I was a good student, but I wasn't like a great student. I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I did decide just to leave the area for a bit. And I went to college in LaSalle University in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, yeah.
So really thought, that was the good move for me. I really wasn't sure of what was here and what was available. So did that, had an awesome experience in Philly. I really loved it. I, obviously made great friends. I, just got to kind of live on my own and really have my own experience out there. And when I was there, again, I still really don't think I had a definite direction. So I think I wasn't one of those kids that automatically knew what I wanted to do or what exactly my life would look like. But I knew I liked events and bringing people together. So I actually, I was in business school. I also was like a communications kind of minor. And I think it's like all the things that were, things that appealed to me for sure. And I got experience in the sports teams out there. So that was kind of my start as I was an intern for the Sixers and the sports teams in Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh.
And that was kind of what I did for my kind of last 2 years in college. And I loved it. I got to kind of work with the Flyers and the Eagles and the Sixers, and just knew that I loved being at those things, because I think I loved, while my husband now is a huge Phillies fan. And so I'd like to say it was more than just the teams. It was like, I loved seeing people kind of come together, be happy, celebrate things. And I just loved that experience. So that was really kind of where I got my start. And I guess what I would say, like, events and like community experience, that, you know, kind of when I graduated and I was offered an opportunity to stay and do that, I really did miss this area. And my family was here, and I did move home, and my first job was at our arena here. So actually a big shout out to Steve Paremba, who just got named as the general manager of our arena, following the incredible Will Beekman, who I know is, you know, has done so many incredible things for our area. But Steve was my first boss. And so I really started just to kind of, when I got back home, started really learning about like this community on that level. And my first job was there. I was a marketing assistant at our arena here. And so I got to do, you know, help with the events and really start to be part of bringing things into this area and help on that level. And again, just continue to like bring people into one space. So
I mean,
that's cool.
You just like summarized many years of your life in an incredible soundbite. I mean, but I want to go back to the Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is it's an inimitable city. I mean, it really can't be compared to any other city, especially when you're talking about the sports culture. I mean, I grew up going to Philadelphia Eagles games with my dad losing me, you know, after the game as he's trying to get autographs, and you know, then the players literally being like, whose kid is this? And it was me, because my dad was getting helmets signed, but had an incredible time going there. But like, the people don't know until they're there. I mean, it can be wild, but man, it is the most electrifying thing to be in the heart of a Philadelphia sports event, whether it's hockey, whether it's football, basketball. I mean, was that something like even in high school, were you like really championing the sports teams? Was it something that you grew up watching with your family, like really into sports yourself, spectator, participant?
I really wasn't. I would say in high school, like I was more, so I was always in dance. So I was like a tap, ballet.
That's a sport.
So it wasn't like as much as sports in that realm, but you know, I think that was more of like my focus in high school. And then I think in Philly, it's almost like contagious, where they were like, hey, there's these opportunities. And I was like, there's a lot of people and it's fun and there's a great vibe. And, you know, I was there when actually it was like Allen Iverson and like those players.
Gosh,
so I
remember those
I did meet
AI.
I mean, you know, so those were like, it was just a really like I said, I think it was just that there was so much like vibrancy about that. You had like all people coming together for the same thing, and they were excited. And I think, and that's so much of, you know, not fast forwarding to now, but I think what plays into why I love a lot of what I'm doing is because I think that I get to deal with people that are coming together for a collective cause and are excited about it and are, you know, really kind of energetic about this area in the community. And it's a different realm than sports, but to me, it kind of all ties in the same of like that great energy in one space. And it makes sense to me now why I love what I'm doing, because it was kind of that it wasn't necessarily that I was a huge sports fan. Mm-hmm. I just loved that vibe of, you know, all these people being in a room collectively just rooting for the same thing. And it just relates into what I'm doing now.
No, that's, and we'll definitely get into that. I mean, I've heard people say you build business around culture. And I mean, going back to Philadelphia, it's an incredible sports culture, but it seems like the community aspect of the fans and all the stuff that was happening in New York in Philadelphia really did excite you. So, but besides going to school in Philly, I mean, like, were you always on South Street? I mean, like, what were some of the things that like you really enjoy? I mean, and again, I'm sure you've been back many, many times since, but what were some of the things that were like the go-tos for you when you were in Philadelphia?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so I think, South Street was a definite one. That's where my other tattoo is that I don't talk about because that was a college tattoo that I don't think means nearly as much to me as the one that they talked about when I opened. Right. But yeah, I mean, definitely. And I had friends that, Temple and Villanova and St. Joe's. And I think it was just really cool because I did have a lot of people that were from home that were kind of in those areas, and obviously met a ton of new people, many of whom I'm still friends with to this day. So I think just culturally it was really cool for me to kind of experience that. And again, really get out on my own, live on my own, and be able to kind of experience that kind of life, and then really decide what I wanted to do and, what aspects of careers and, life were appealing to me. And I think, again, for me, it was one of those things that it did make me, I think, I'm so glad I had that experience. I'm sure you could talk a lot about New York, and I'm really glad you did that. I think for me though, I did feel like maybe if I came back, because I did want to, be around my family and make an impact, I felt like this area would allow me to make an impact. Where in Philly, I think there's so many people that were kind of trying to do maybe what I wanted to do one day. Mm-hmm. And so I think that my family drew me back in a lot of those circumstances, but I also feel like now for me, I do feel like it did give me the opportunity and the platform to be able to get into a position where I could really make an impact that I now feel like I really want to do, and something that, is part of what I feel very grateful that I am able to do every day. So I think I'm so glad I did it. And just I'm sure that you're so glad that you went and experienced that, but I have so much more, I guess I would say, pride and gratefulness for the area and the place that I call home. So do you feel it's necessary for people to, just like people recommend traveling to get perspective, mm-hmm.
do you feel it's necessary for people, whether it's going to college away from home or living in a city or somewhere around a city, to gain that perspective, to be able to soak up all that information and to be able to apply it, in other aspects of their life? Do you feel like that's a necessary move for growth, or do you feel like people can just get that by being in one place their entire life?
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. I mean, I think that, some people, I think, kind of really have that, idea of really what that looks like. And, they're able to kind of do that without doing those types of things. So I always say, even right now with a lot of the things that we're doing in my work world, I always advocate for, I think there's both of those avenues of, so I think sometimes we do need kids to leave the area. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes I don't want them to, right? We want them to stay here. And I think there's both sides of that, where I do think that sometimes it is a really cool thing for them to be able to go out and get that experience, or whether it's, education in a certain way, to be able to come back and do that, or to be able to stay here and just kind of help them find those things immediately. But I think that there's pathways for both, if that makes sense. I think for me, it was just what I was supposed to do to really be able to come back and feel the way that I do, and be able to do that on a larger level. But I think that it's something that just varies from, I think really for me, I didn't really have an exact idea of what that was going to look like. So I almost think it helped me to get there. Whereas I know a lot of kids now, and I'm super impressed by it, really have such a good idea of what that looks like. But I think people are all over the spectrum on that. So I think we need both of those, because mm-hmm. I also think that there's a lot of people that are now, in our age range that have made the move back and are really committed to this area, and what, leaving has kind of gave us that perspective too. So I think it's really neat. I think we'll inspire that next generation that decides to stay here and make them really proud to stay here, right? Not that it's a bad thing that they are, but also to inspire that, hey, you can go have that. But if you ever decide to come back, we'd love for you to come back. And there's a lot of cool things here. And there's a lot of great things about, having families here and what this area has to offer. So I think that'll continue to kind of be the narrative. I just hope that we shape it in a way that's a positive narrative either way.
And that's beautiful. And I actually found the third, because I'm a big rules of three guy, having done comedy. So you have stay hungry, stay hungry, stay foolish, stay home. That could be the third one as a way to, hey, let's go. Yeah. Let's
have your experiences. And then if you want to, yes. We love that.
We put an asterisk on the end of home. But going back to home, did your family, did they always live here? Did they come from somewhere else? I mean, I'm not talking about immigration, where your roots with your family, but siblings, parents, was everybody sort of home based? I know for me, my parents, born and raised in Wilkes-Barre, My sister, we lived here until we went to school out of state. But I think that a lot of going back to like people that decide to stay, people that decide to leave, I think it's a lot of influence with your household. If you have siblings that went away from college, you may have a little bit more. There may be more of a tendency to leave, or for if you have people that stayed home, or like no one's ever ventured out of the area, maybe you might you might not do that, or you might do that. So did you have any of those influences at all with parents, or siblings that were home based, or they were always traveling?
Yeah, I think so. My mom was from the Hazleton area, so that's where, and my dad was from Trenton, New Jersey. So he was actually came to this area and was more in the Poconos. That's how they kind of found Whitehaven. And that's where, built our home. And that's where we were, my sister and I were raised, for basically our entire lives. So that was always our home base. My sister went to Penn State, so she's a Penn State grad.
Okay, yep.
So, she kind of, I would say in that way, stayed semi-local, right? And
Sure.
so, I think we were always encouraged to kind of look at, whatever those options were that we wanted to. And, I was always, I wanted to try the city. That was always something in me, that I was like
girl.
New York
Yes,
City or
right.
Philadelphia. So that was always something in me that I just think I hadn't experienced. So I really wanted to try it. So again, just like grateful I had that time, but yeah, definitely. And I always say this, I think one of the coolest things about where we are, and this isn't like a plug as to the area, but
this is a home.
We're so convenient to all that. And I love that about this area, that like you can be in Philly and, hour and 45
how fast
on
you're
how
driving.
I used to drive when I was in college,
Right.
only 2 hours. But, and like New York, like we were just talking about this,
Yeah.
like how quickly we can be in New York to like
Right.
experience all that. Our location is the coolest. So I think it still gives us such great access to that stuff that
Right.
I don't know. I still feel like it's still our area, like all those types of things. So, but it also just gives you that like, I don't know, that hominess of like, again, I think that smaller kind of feel that, again, for someone like me, I can, make an impact. I do feel like I'm in a little bit of a smaller community, which I really do like. And I feel like it's kind of the best of both worlds in those ways. But yeah, so my family, and still obviously local. My dad's still in my Haven area. My mom is still in the Hazleton area. My sister is now in Doylestown, but obviously is in the area.
Kind of
quite
feel,
often.
like the bird. Yeah. That's
So
great. Okay.
so everybody's still here, and so I still kind of have all my.
That's great.
Yeah.
My sister's
local.
my sister's younger. Is your sister is a younger sister?
She's
older?
1 year older than me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
so she's
cool.
1 year older
very,
than me.
Very cool.
Yeah.
My sister's in Plymouth meeting, so
Okay,
it was
okay.
nice to visit.
Yep.
Visit her there. I think it also too, going back to influences. I mean, I knew I went to Wyoming Valley West High School, and a large part of me going to college was influenced by trying to get a scholarship for sports, because that was sort of the ticket to help pay for the education. And it was like for us during that time, and this is I went to school from 99 to 03. Dating myself, but that's okay. I'm proud of how old I am. It was encouraged to like go out and explore. And it's interesting today, like that, because I've been back to Valley West High School. I've spoken there. I've just now being back 4 months in this area and just kind of seeing how things are. It's really interesting how like the school system, the public education system has changed. I think that like there are people that want to go to college, and then there are people that want to go viral. And I think that both are great pursuits, because I know a lot of people that decided not to go to college, and they're making an incredible living doing marketing or any influencer oriented things on because of new media tools. And then there are people that want to pursue the traditional track, whether it's because they're on a sports team, whether they're trying to study to be a lawyer or a doctor, or one of the many careers in humanities. But do you feel that the public, just the education in this area, just because it's what we're close to, like, are you hearing anything about like how students are being encouraged to think about the next chapter of their lives? I mean, we're going to go into what you do for a living, but I think it's all part of that mindset of like, what are we working towards, And I hear stuff on one side of the aisle. I was curious if you've heard anything on your side of the aisle.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there is, so many good efforts out there. I think it's really about getting, these kids, and more so sometimes I even think like the parents, right, of just like the kind of the what is in this area, like what I always say this, like I'm like if now in the opportunity that I get at this job every day to sit in the office that I get to and like hear about the things that are coming in and know about the different businesses and know about what they are. Like I wish I had that when I was younger, that I would have known like, hey, these are the things I can do with what I might be good at, right? Because I really didn't know what that was. And I think that the schools do a really good job of like trying to kind of put that all together for kids and showing them that. But I think that I always say this, like I don't think every one group or entity is going to solve that. I think it's like, you know, people coming together and the schools and groups like what I do at the chamber and, you know, entrepreneurs and everyone kind of coming into one space to saying like, kind of how do we make sure that an industry, right? Saying like, how are we going to show kids what's here? And how are we going to put that out in like one way that kids actually see like, what am I good at? What could that mean? How can I get there? Whether that is, you know, a trade, which there's so many wonderful jobs in those types of things right now, or whether that's, you know, going into, maybe it isn't higher ed, right? Maybe it's a local higher ed. Maybe it's a higher ed that they might need to leave the area for, or maybe it is just going right into the workforce because that's exactly what, you know, their skill set is and definitely is a need in the area. So I think, again, it's aligning those things. There's definitely things we're working on that end. Not that that's specifically what I want to plug today, but I think some very cool efforts that, again, we're just really trying to enforce a lot of things that are out there that exist, but just trying to put it into one place for kids so that they can be as successful as they want. Because I think about that. I think about, you know, again, like when I was younger, or any of our team, I think we often think about this of like, how can we start to show what we get to see every day of like, there is great things happening. There's so many new developments. There's so many opportunities here. How do you get that to this young group of people who really probably don't know about that yet and really don't know how to exactly get from like point A to Z? How do you make those connections, and how do you just make sure that, you know, everyone's kind of looped into that? So I think that's something that I think everyone has, and this big thing, if you know me well, I think that there's a lot of wonderful things that happen locally. I think that the key is always going to be if we work together and put them into one place. I don't think anyone, you know, is going to really solve anything individually. I think it's going to be a group effort collectively of a lot of people that truly care and come together and kind of make solutions that will really bring this area forward. I think if you look at a lot of progressive areas, the reasons why they've done those things is because they really invited anyone and everyone to sit at the table to be a part of those collective solutions. And I think we're getting there. I think we need to continue to do that. And I think that when we do that is when we're really going to start to see some of those things improve that we've all wanted to see improve for many years. And we're on our way to that. But I think it's that kind of collectiveness and something that, you know, I definitely think is something that's very important to myself. It's very important to my team, that nothing you'll ever see us doing, you know, and I know we'll talk about the chamber and what we do in a little bit, but really nothing you'll ever see us doing is just us doing it ourselves. And we're very proud of that.
I mean, we've hinted at it several times. I want people to understand whether they live in this area or they don't. What is the chamber, and do you really feel like it's an amalgamation of all the things that you're passionate about professionally and personally?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, you know, as I said, kind of like when I came back to the area, started working in those types of things and had a couple other work experiences before, I actually was hired. I worked right before I started working at the chamber, I was the director of marketing and events for Gus Giannetti. So I worked at Mr. Giannetti Hotel Conference Center in downtown Wilkes-Barre for 9 years. Wow. And I was in charge of all the events. So there's a lot of probably events. Did over 500 or 600 events during my time there. I married a lot of people, so people see me consistently and they're like, you did my wedding. And I really do remember all of them, which is funny. But I did a chamber dinner. And so I worked at this event and just thought it was the coolest thing because it was kind of like the taking from what I was doing, again, from like my sports experience of all these people in a room to weddings of like everyone celebrating and being happy to like packed rooms of people like honoring these incredible people that were winning Lifetime Achievement Awards and that had changed this community and really made huge impact. So it, again, was like sort of this transition for me, but I came on to the chamber team. At that time, Wico was the president, and I had worked with him on his event, and he said, you know, we have a event manager job open. And he's like, would you ever consider doing that? And so I had worked tons of nights and weekends at Giannetti's, and I said, you know what? I said, and Mr. Giannetti, by the way, was the most community-minded man in the world. And he had me in everything. I was on the chamber TRC campaign. I was in the women's network. So it was like such a natural step for me to be like, this is something I really care about now. He got me into it, which is funny. And he's my board member to this day. So he's still my boss. I kind of laugh about that.
Mr. Janae is a great guy.
He's a wonderful guy. Yeah. And so I thought, okay, this would give me also the opportunity, to kind of do this on another level and maybe be home nights and weekends, which I'm still not, by the way. But it was a very cool transition for me. And one that made sense.
What a great foreshadowing. And I bet you definitely miss the incredible music that was played during the weddings. I know that we were talking about our preferences. I mean, you're a big rap fan.
I'm a big rap fan.
And we were reminiscing about before we went live about just the incredible burnt CDs that we would play for like the car rides to the beach and stuff like that.
Yep.
Do you remember? Do you have any any playlists that you're very proud of? Like you can talk about era of the music, but I know everybody has their one that they're like, oh, this was it's not scratched. And even if it is a scratched CD, you'll still listen to it in the car or wherever you can find a place to play.
I wish I still had my scratched CDs. Like that would be my.
I still listen to mine.
That would be my dream.
Just like a bunch of remixes.
I had like the car, like where you had.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that would be my dream. I wish I still had that desperately, but I have a great like running walking playlist that I'll actually use now. That is a combination of like all of my it's a lot of rap. It's a lot of kind of some things that are like, I'd say like more so like on nowadays. But I think it's a lot of my like 90s and 2000s hits. And that's like my jam. So
isn't it interesting how music can just take you back?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's and I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, I kind of came to my own during the whole boy band era. I think I've joked about this before, but I was obsessed with NSYNC so much so like I had a boy band in high school, which I've joked with you about, and people don't need to hear this joke.
That's incredible.
It was nice until you saw the disappointment in your parents' eyes, until you won the talent show, and then they were like, "Oh, this is fantastic." But we had a great time. But like anytime I listen, I hear, when I saw that NSYNC was together presenting an award that Taylor Swift won, I was like, oh my gosh, are they going to come back? Because you see like Backstreet Boys, New Kids on the Block, and I joke and say that, probably their concerts, their curfew is like 8 p.m. because, they're like, the moves don't hit as much as well as they did before. And those guys are tired. They work really hard at their age. But, listening to a song, just like tearing up my heart. I'm like, oh, I remember where I was. See,
I was more Backstreet Boys. We talked about this. I know you were more NSYNC, but I appreciated them both. So I have to say that was obviously my
all
era.
Their songs written by basically the same guy, Max Martin, the Swede, who basically wrote all the pop songs back in that day. But it's great. I mean, I was telling you before, working in fitness, you go to a group fitness class. You better, the first thing you got to program is your playlist. Like that is, you are a DJ, you're a motivational speaker, you're a bad stand-up comic, you're a fitness professional, all into one thing. And there are people that will call you out if your playlist isn't up to date, Sure. And I'm sure you've been to fitness classes where you're like, this is like lukewarm, or oh man, this is fire.
Music keeps you going and all those types of things.
Oh my gosh,
yeah, definitely.
Incredible. So going back to the Wilkes-Barre Chamber of Commerce, I mean, a lot of the missions, just reading about it, you provide business support. There's a lot of community involvement, advocacy, tourism, innovation. What does a day in the life of Lindsay look like in Public Square there?
Yeah. So, I mean, no day is ever the same. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I love the most about it. But, I think we have, and kind of from, again, the time I started there as the event and program manager, I kind of did almost every job until I got to, the position that I was. So like in events, and then, obviously the Chamber of Commerce side, and then into the Chamber of Business Industry side, which is economic development. And then until to where I am now, where I get to kind of oversee all of that. And I think we really, over the past 6 years, have reinvented kind of the entire way, I'd say sometimes, that we do things, because we really wanted it to be an organization, and we have an incredible board, and we have incredible volunteers and incredible past leadership, frankly, that's gotten us to to the place that we've been, that we really just wanted to reimagine, like, what did we need to do to get this area really moving forward in the way that all of us wanted to see. And we had, even prior to the pandemic, we started on a lot of that work. We were named to the Greater Wyoming Valley Chamber. So we kind of made sure their area was bigger and we were serving more, and we had more people that were accessible to a lot of the things that we do. You don't have to be a member to come to what we do, to get information from us, to be able to access resources, because we really just wanted it to be a place that, I think sometimes when people think of Chamber of Commerce, they're like, oh, is it a bunch of, men sitting in a room drinking, whiskey? And it's absolutely not. I don't drink whiskey, actually. So it's not like that at all. And I think that it was a lot of like reinventing things like that, of like, this is, just really making sure that it was an organization that people started to really look towards and trust, and be able to say like, hey, this is a group we want to come to be able to just really further the quality of life in this area. So whether that was, us working on workforce, which we just, we have some really cool programs in that, or, getting great businesses in the area, or helping businesses that obviously COVID was a huge, something that we really tried to position ourselves as, hey, we're a trusted resource. Come to us for help. We want to help anyone and everyone during that time. We help with grants towards small businesses and businesses that, need assistance. But also, I think just one of the biggest things, and you'll see our team and I doing that, is that we're just trying to improve the quality of life in this area. And for us, it's like, it's not just about a business coming here, but it's like, is the family of the businesses that are relocating here, are they going to like it? All right. Are the spouse and children going to be happy here? Are the young people that we want to retain? We just talked about that. Are those, kids that are graduating from high school and college, do they feel like there's enough for them to do here, and opportunities and activities? And is this an area that they're proud of? So for us, it's bigger than all of that. It's really just more so making it that, this is an area that we can all be proud of, that's progressive moving forward. And that, I think for me, it will always be that everyone feels like they have the opportunity to sit at that table and have a part of what that means in their community. So I think that was something that, when I kind of first got into a lot of the world I'm in now, I didn't necessarily feel like I could give my opinion, or that I should sit at that table, and I saw these amazing people sitting at that table, kind of deciding on what the future and the direction looked like in the area. And I think that my thing for others will always be that if somebody wants to do that, encouraging them that they can, they should, and that helping to open the door for them to sit at that table. Because I know that, for me, it was, again, working my way up to that. I didn't come in as a CEO. I started at the bottom, kind of came up to that point. So I think that for me, it's always going to be continuing to open that door for other people to know that, they absolutely can have a voice, and they should have a voice, and they should be able to sit at any table that they want to.
And that's beautiful. I love you talking about not only what's good for the businesses, but the business, like the people that they serve, that sort of end-to-end experience. Because, what I've seen in New York City from the 13 years that I lived there, there are businesses that open up, but it's like, well, how are they motivating the people that live in those communities to help support them? What are we providing people that is either going to help them or I find that, like, coming back here, I was really, really happy to see that you were at the helm at the Chamber of Commerce, and that there is this like holistic view on how to serve, right? How to be a civic servant to your community. And if the people are happy to be where they are, they're going to help the people that are having those businesses in the areas, in the communities that they live. And, I wanted to ask, going back to like because that's a big responsibility that you carry every single day. I mean, there's people, businesses and the community at large depend on you to show up, post playlist in your car, like ready to go, prime for the day. What is, do you believe that having worked your way up was necessary for you to be able to come into your job and do your best work? I mean, I have my opinion about doing a bunch of different jobs and how they are, as I was mentioning before, an amalgamation of like what you eventually do in your life. But do you feel that you could do your best work today if you didn't do your, all those different jobs working up to the job that you have today?
On the Stacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Elevation Wellness, NEPA's premier wellness center located on Mundy Street in Wilkes-Barre. From pro athletes to busy parents, Elevation Wellness is leading the conversation when it comes to bettering your health through integrative medicine. Founded by NEPA native Louis Helmecke, Elevation Wellness offers physician-formulated and guided treatments that are administered by registered nurses. To learn more about how you can experience the benefits of IV vitamin therapy, multivitamin booster shots, non-invasive aesthetics, or peptide, NAD, red light, and compression therapy, visit elevation-wellness.com or follow them on Instagram at Elevation Wellness NEPA. All On the Stacks listeners will receive 10% off their first purchase with code STACKS at checkout. Call 570-762-9400 or visit elevation-wellness.com to book your appointment today. Elevation Wellness, taking your health to new heights.
My greatest honor is receiving the trust of a family who has lost a loved one through the fault of another, or receiving a call from someone who's been seriously injured and asking me to go to battle on their behalf and to receive the monetary justice they deserve.
To learn more, visit Anzalone Law offices online at anzalonelaw.com. And now we're back on the Stacks.
I mean, probably not. I think for the reason of like, I think that there was a lot of things that when I started and I wasn't the position that I was, that motivated me to probably stay on that path and do that and make sure I do something for others that are coming. So for instance, just like I said, of not maybe necessarily having the position or a title to sit on a certain board, or knowing enough people to, feel comfortable in a room to raise my hand. Having someone say something to you when you're young and, that maybe makes you feel semi-inferior, that, it's not valid or something like that. So I think those experiences were ones that I was like, okay, when I get to that point, I will make sure that I don't ever do that to someone, right? And that I really help them and I understand that where they're coming from. I think that is something that because I had worked in a lot of those different positions, I also understood the challenges. And I think that's one really cool thing about my incredible team. I say this, and I know you guys have a lot of people on, but I have the best team in the entire world. And I think that because I had really worked in a lot of those positions, I understand them. So I'll understand their challenges. I'll understand, what they have to go through for certain things and had difficulties and all of that. And I think that kind of, I definitely take more of an empathetic kind of person, human aspect to what we do. And I think that sometimes that's, could be questionable with some people, right? Where they're just like, maybe you care too much. Maybe it's, and for me, that's one thing I had to take an assessment once of like how I scored kind of, I'm sure we've all done this, right? Of the personality types and different things like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And I had to take one that kind of was, also, and I obviously score very high in empathy and different things like that.
Amen.
And so I think what's funny about things like that are how much it's changing of like what actually leadership looks like. So I am sensitive. I am, it's definitely one of the things that I tend to make a part of my leadership style. And I've actually learned that that's, certainly while I have to, make sure that I'm not always leading with my emotions, I guess I would say, but I am I'm an emotional person. I'm an empathetic person. I, from day one, even when I was a teenager, definitely have always been an anxiety sufferer. So I'm very, and realized how much that's made me a sensitive person. So something I've always struggled with my whole life, but I've realized that's also really helped me to be very in tune, not only with like myself and what's going on with me, but it makes me very in tune with other people. And frankly, that's made me really good at able to sometimes read a room or understand when someone else is struggling. And I think through those kinds of things, that's really been a cool part of my journey too, because especially what I'm doing now, being a leader of my team, and I have the incredible honor of doing that every day because they teach me every single day. But I also think that it's helped me to, be able to, like I said, I think throughout my years in some of those roles and some of the things I've experienced, I could understand why it's hard for people to want to come into a room or take a position, or even another woman to take a leadership role, or let alone, I think that there's just different circumstances of that I would like understand. And I think that I could hopefully in some way, I always hope that I could be a part of making that easier for someone else, or especially our next generation that's coming into the workforce, where they excite me because I think that they really are motivated to do that. They're motivated for change. This will be the most socially minded generation we'll ever see. They'll be the most entrepreneurial. They really want to affect change on a larger level in the communities they live in. And I think that's really exciting to me. So if there's anything I can do to continue to not only help the people we have currently that are, obviously, members of our community through all generations, but also for that group, I think that's my biggest passion, because I would, love to help open the door for them to be able to take any of those seats. And if there's anything I learned along the way, that can be helpful in that, that's one of my biggest passions.
A lot of things to unpack there. I appreciate you sharing all that. You really struck a chord with me because, I co-founded a business with another person, and we are the same person, but we have like different skill sets. And I always say, let's make our strengths stronger. And, the weaknesses that I have are the strengths that you have. And, I had tried to pick, the way that I see businesses, right? Because again, we're talking about the new face of leadership. And I think that having high EQ is very important. I think it's like a quality of a leader that's slept on, was slept on in the past. It's being embraced a lot more now through the rise of incredible female leadership in businesses. But I see businesses like, they're a living, breathing entity. And, in the human body, the body can survive without the brain, without the brain. You could be brain dead and still alive, but the body dies when the heart stops. Mm-hmm. So I always try to remember about the heart of your business and your intentions that you have to serve the people that you chose to serve. And it's really, really important because, this, you've dealt with a lot of decision makers in businesses. If they're not self-funded, they have a board to report to, they have investors. Mm-hmm. There are certain requirements when you're talking about your quarterlies or your H1, H2 reports, like they want to see progress, right? But a lot of times progress isn't always numbers. It could be quantified on impact. And I find that people, you could tell that you've made change just by the way that people just by how people show up to you. And so, are there any female leaders that when you were, because again, you have a great team around you, but you're the decision maker. I mean, anybody that you looked up to in your career that you were like, wow, I really like how that person shows up to solving problems every single day as a leader?
Yeah. I mean, I was, again, extremely lucky, I think, in the role that I had some amazingly kick-ass women that I was just mesmerized by when I started there, because these women were in, one of the rooms that we would sit in one of the boards was 98% male still. And this was only, 7 years ago. Wow. So you had women that were just rock stars they still are, and they're still my mentors, and, I incredibly look up to them. So, I think, I got to really learn firsthand from, some incredible women like Liz Graham and Tara Mugford Wilson and, Terry Ohms and, Kathy Bankus. And there's just so many that I won't say that I feel bad because I'm not going to remember all of their names, but these were women that, like, again, I think, first time, leadership in a lot of these roles. So first time women of taking these roles, and, they, held the door open for me. And I think that, Mary Irvine and all these women that I just saw, and they would, they would speak up, they would raise their hand, they would, I always think that's a really cool thing, is that it wasn't just about then for me sitting in a room. Sometimes it was using my voice. And then finally it was, being able to kind of sometimes lead those sessions. And I got to learn from, I was incredibly lucky. And like I said, because I got to really learn from some incredible women leaders in this area that, and made it a point, by the way, they made it a point to open the door for me. They took the time and they did that. So I think that we are lucky to have a lot of incredible female leaders in this room, or in this area. That
there's a part of me that
I feel like they're here right now. But in this area that, like I said, that I'm still in awe, frankly, to this day, because they don't stop, continuing to like move that needle forward. And it's definitely so much needed, I think, of just showing that, really anyone can have these roles, and that, really it's a really important thing too, to show the diversity of this area. Like, I think we have a very diverse area. And so making sure that, that's represented in so many different ways. And I think something that we're still very much lacking, and I think that we have to work towards, because only then, when we have all aspects of our area, truly like our population, and, whether that be, all of the different ethnicities that are in this area, genders, and, just all the different types of people that really are in our community, I think that's when you'll really start to see a lot of that collectiveness. So yeah, I had a lot of great examples. So I'm very, very lucky in that way.
You were talking about the idea of moving forward with the mission of the Chamber of Commerce to help move things forward. What does forward look like to you? Is it a combination of innovation? Is it about the people that are involved in the progress, which we know is not linear, right? There's going to be some pivots along the way, but what do you mean by forward? I know it seems like it's pretty obvious statement, but what does forward look like to you as a result, in conjunction with the chamber and what you want to do to help serve the people of the community?
I think forward is, I think it is seeing realistic things. Like, I obviously seeing our, education rates improve, our poverty rates going down, our, unemployment levels, being at a place where, again, we're connecting people with the right opportunities, and we're seeing our industry on the other side saying, hey, we do have a workforce we need. I think those are things we can quantify and we can actually look towards. I think that the other things that I kind of talk about are more of those things of seeing, again, more of the collectiveness of the community, with whether that's, continuing to do great things on the quality of life side, like more of, the Rock in the River is one of the most important, one of the most popular things that we do every summer.
That was incredible, by the way.
Well, it would be great to have them all the time. But again, we need to get more people at the table, continuing these efforts, collectively moving the community forward in those ways of what we want to see, and more people to really take part in doing those things. I think, so I think those types of things, and with that, I just think are going to come with the, obviously, like, just a lot of the things that we talked about, of really just starting to see that pride in the area, that quality of life, really, the perspectives start to improve. So I think that moving the area forward is a lot of those things that we can actually look at number wise and say, like, are we improving on those types of things? And then how can we look at that also from the other way of, is there a lot of great cultural, recreational, and there are, and we know that there are, but like, how do we continue to do those, get more of those available, and then making sure that, again, we're looking at that holistically and just starting to see this as a place. I think where you'll really quantify that, again, is starting to see some of the retention rate we get from our younger people staying in the area, but also people that are relocating here and that we're keeping them here. A lot of people that were located here throughout the pandemic, because it is a really great place to, again, our cost of living, our proximity still to a lot of those different things, the opportunities that we have here. So I think that's another thing of like making, again, keeping that group here in the area and really making this their home and seeing how we can really capture, people in that capacity. So I think it's just going to be on the momentum that we currently have, but continuing to do that on a much larger level and getting more people involved. We measure that from engagement. We measure that through, something like our Young Professionals Council, which started 6 years ago, 6 years ago, 6 or 7. I'm aging, but I like to think I'm still a young professional, but I think my team just told me I just aged out this year because I just turned 40. But, we started that with a very small amount. There's over probably 650 of them at this point that are engaged in that effort. So we can measure things like that. And those are, again, people that are graduating college but are staying in the area working and then joining that group. And, they're young people that are working here that really do want to get community involved and invested. So we can measure things like that. The different councils and committees that we have. We have a great women's council. We have a diversity, equity, and inclusion council, a government affairs that kind of ties us into making sure we're getting a good amount of funding for this area, that we're fighting for NEPA and we're saying, hey, we need money here to support our businesses and the different efforts we have. So, but I think the things that, we kind of can't necessarily measure as much are just kind of those, the quality of life things that I think will just we're seeing the engagement and all of the activity going on. But I think it's going to be how we change that narrative. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like, I'd be excited to hear about how we change the narrative about what opportunities are here and how we start to kind of present that. And we talk about this area in a really positive way, collectively, that it's an area that we can be proud of.
Well, this area is being redefined by people that are coming from elsewhere. I mean, growing up, there are people that were born and raised in Wilkes-Barre and in the various towns for generations. And so part of that change is recognizing that the face of the neighborhoods that make up this incredible northeastern Pennsylvania are that people have outside perspectives. So, I feel like what you're saying is it's spot on. Do you feel that there needs to be a concerted effort? You're talking about having people, go to school here, work here, fuel the economy. Where's the first touch point? Is it in our high schools? Is it earlier? How do we get the people that are the future leaders of tomorrow, the people that are going to be serving, their neighbors, either by creating businesses or choosing to have a business, to work for a business here and fuel the economy by going to places in Public Square and elsewhere. How do we talk to them? Like where do we talk to them first? I would love to hear your thoughts about that, because I think that's, and then not only where do we talk to them, what's the language that we need to speak to them? And by that I mean, how do we convey that we get them? Because the priorities of this the Gen Z and the Alpha generation. Well, I would say Alpha is my son's era. He's 8 months old. But especially Gen Z, I love what they stand for in many ways, and I feel like they've been able to take technology and use it for good, use it for advocacy, and there are things that are important to them that, again, going back to the emotional side, like they don't want to be working for companies that have bad values. They don't want to be just going to a job, clocking in, clocking out. They want their work to matter. They want to have more. They want to have meaning in what they do, in the relationships that they have. How do we show up for them to let them know that we get it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, as far as what age do you kind of like, when do we target them? I think right now we're all, even us, we used to be very focused on like college level. We're like, we're going to get them,
Yeah.
And we now, then we were like, okay, it's very much high school. It's very much high school. And we have a great program that's called Loser Learns to Work that is really aimed at that high school level to really align kids with relevant interest.
Loser and Learn to Work?
Yes,
Love
Loser
it.
and Learns to Work. So that's our kind of, it's
yeah.
our alignment with our great partners at the LIU and the Institute and CareerLink of all the things that are out there of having kids take that assessment, seeing what they're good at. Mm-hmm. What are the relevant industries here in Luzerne County? How do I get there using a lot of tools that they already have, but then also some new ones? We use our friends at LinkedIn, which is really cool. The first time
I love
doing
that.
A partnership
I love you. LinkedIn's a big company. I love that you're like got friends at LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Well, one of the first times they're doing it, so it's actually a very cool
great.
example of how they're doing what they're doing now on a local economic development level in the nation. So it's a very cool example of that. We're one of the first times they're trying it. And then we're linking industry. So we're saying like what all the companies that are, in our community in Luzerne County, how will you give a kid an experience in that? Whether that's coming in and following Jimmy Martin around for a day of saying, what is it like to be an entrepreneur? What is it like to do a podcast? Do I like that? So a kid could say, you know what? I don't think it was my jam. Or yes, it is.
He wore spandex way too much. Around, it's like, sorry, not sorry. You get right.
You're not wearing spandex.
Yeah, this is one of the few times I'm not, but yeah.
But they could actually get that experience.
So day in the life, right.
So really help, or it could be an apprenticeship, an internship. Mm-hmm. So all different opportunities there to really help kids find that next pathway. But that is something we currently have launched and we're working on, and we're really going to work on expanding that and invite anyone from the community to be a part of that. But to answer your question, why we know that we kind of have this cool model that we're working on with some other partners, some early childhood partners as well, where it's actually when they're 6. So when they're 6 is when you're supposed to kind of start to talk to them about like what they're good at and like kind of start to meld it into them. So And that's obviously like kind of what we've been hearing from some things, and why we do realize we have some great early learning partners that are very much like, yes, like this is where we need to start. And so we have some great local community partners that definitely want to do a model locally of, we call it cradle to career to community, where you're really starting to make sure that these kids are set up from the start to succeed. They're getting the resources they need. We have over 1,000 nonprofits in Luzerne County, and that is crazy if you think about it.
That's wild.
But that's also why you'll see like our team be such a big advocate and supporter. And, I'm a huge supporter of a lot of our local nonprofits, because we know that actually, like, if you don't have a healthy community, it's really hard for you to have a healthy workforce, right? If kids aren't set up right, or people aren't getting the resources they need and the types of things they need to be successful, and whether that's food insecurity, or whether that's education, or any of the types of different things, or social assistance, like those the different types of resources that the community needs. We just know that you really can't have, again, a healthy community that's going to show up to work and be able to do these types of things every day. So I think that's why you'll see us really make such a high importance on supporting also the nonprofit community, because again, it's all part of this ecosystem of, again, like from the time that child is little to making sure, again, them and their families are set up with everything they need and all the right resources that are available here, to the point where, we get them into a career, which is making sure they're successful throughout, their K through 12 years. And they're getting, again, that of like, what's here, what's available to me, how do I get there? A lot of these kids, are going to be first time college students if they're going to a higher ed. They may not know what it means to, how do we get financial aid? Is there scholarship opportunities? There's a lot of cool ways now that we can help them to bridge those gaps. And then again, the trades, like showing them these opportunities of these great paying careers in our area, if that's really their skill set, which is desperately needed. So I think it's lining all those things up. And then to the point where we like to say, cradle to career, but then also to community, where we do get them involved. We get them on, we get them invested in what it means to be a part of this community, and onto the different, aspects of the community that we're aware of, but they're really not, right? So getting them to be parts of those things, I think it's that whole life cycle that has to happen for us to be able to actually, like you said, kind of make it. When I say like, what does the future look like, or what does moving forward mean? Aligning all of that is what it means. And I think there's so many people doing that incredible work, but like putting it into one place that we can all kind of access and work together on is really, I think, the end ultimate, kind of success. I guess I would say that it would just be cool, because I think one of the things that when you talk about the narrative, I think a couple of years ago, brought a consultant in, and another group did locally. And, the consultant said to us, like, your main problem in this area sometimes isn't any of the things that you have here. It's sometimes the narrative that's told, right? And so I think it's shifting that and really positioning it in a different light. And again, if that's what our kids are hearing at a young age, or younger people, like, so I think it's shifting that in parents. And then of course, and in the current, in our community in general, are really talking about a lot of those positive things, and then making sure that we're instilling that in our youth so that they have every ability to succeed.
I couldn't agree more that I'm glad to hear that it's starting as early as 6 years old. And I love the name, by the way. But at the end of the day, the household is key. And, it's no surprise that there's been some issues with people not having the right type of guidance. I mean, out of their control, kids not having leadership in their household to be able to understand what the future could look like being able to make better decisions. And this happens all over the country. It's not just unique to this area. I mean, how do we get the parents psyched about, or the guardians of these children psyched about contributing or to accessing these resources? How do we communicate with them to be able to participate and to follow the lead of our local leaders, to know that we're trying to pave a path forward that sets their kids up for success?
Mm-hmm. I think hopefully, with a lot of the new initiatives that are out there that, again, it's really just going to be kind of putting this information in a public accessible way that parents also will have access to it, so they can really, again, start to link with a lot of those local types of things that maybe they didn't prior have access to or weren't aware of. So again, I think it's really anyone that's doing a lot of, that's working in kind of that realm. Again, we're trying to, kind of make this collective way that someone can access those types of things, and that the schools, and they've been wonderful in participating in that, but they're, ready and willing to kind of help with that and putting that messaging out there. So I think it's just, again, that collective kind of working together and getting it into, from the workforce development partners, which is like kind of technically what we would be, or, I think there's a lot of people out there that are doing some incredible work in that. The government partners, again, I always think it's such a cross-sector approach to how that's going to happen. It's going to be private, it's going to be government, it's going to be, organizations like ourselves that are kind of putting things into one place and actually making it accessible for people to find. And I think that's kind of been the disconnect. And I think if there's some way that we can, and that's what we are, currently working towards, but just working on bridging that gap. I do think that's where you're going to see a lot of that. Yeah.
Expanding upon the idea of innovation from just helping the people that are currently living here live better, how do we get people that may not have any idea about this area, that went to school in Philly and work in Philly, people that are living and working in New York City? What are things that are going to attract their attention to come back here and to take their skill sets to help fuel the economy of this area? I mean, for me, since I'm from this area, and I had an opportunity with my work and also personally to be able to move back home and be closer to family, to raise, my son with my wife, that was the pull. It was the change of environment for the sake of my child. But, like you said, during the pandemic, there were a lot of people whose parents had that spare bedroom that, still had their old sheets. They were like, hey, you know what? Like, my job's remote. I don't necessarily have to be somewhere to work. I don't have to live in an area to make a living. People that are in New York and in Philly, like you say Trader Joe's, they're like, cool, yeah, sign me up. Or Whole Foods, like those sort of things that like appeal. Again, talking about the language of your community. Those little things that will attract people to come back or to consider. They'll go, oh, what's going on? Has there been any discussion about what are some things that are happening elsewhere that can kind of, get the attention of those incredible, that the workforce that could be, working here? How do we get them here? Do we need to have more businesses understand that there's incredible like opportunities like the Spark program, or hey, say you have a company that's looking to relocate. Are there any incentives here in the area, from the state of Pennsylvania that help relocate businesses? I know some, but I'm alley-ooping you to to give some good answers here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think the first issue always that we were kind of trying to really, I mean, I think after, especially as we moved out of the pandemic, there was a lot of, okay, what's your immediate thing? And I think it was like, okay, let's get people all the help they need, the resources they need. Let's get people back into, if they needed at that time, if they had lost jobs or were transitioning their jobs, like how do we quickly do that? How do we still service what we needed to in the area, right? Because we still needed to make sure that we were taking care of everyone and things were operating again and coming back online in some way. But I think then it was also, I think we had to kind of to shift a lot. And I think some of the programs that were developed of that were really ones that weren't just, I think right now, again, we're focused on, okay, let's really work on, the brain drain issue of keeping people here and trying to do that. So I think it was the Band-Aid of, okay, let's get people back into the workforce as quickly as we can. Now I think it's how do we make sure that we're cultivating a future workforce that's sustainable and that's like from the ground up, like we just talked about. And I think it's the next level of what you said, it's recruitment. So how do we make sure that we are getting people, because we actually know this, we need to work on our, we need to work on actually getting younger people into this area just because of our aging demographic, right? So we actually know that. So I think it's then that layer of how do we recruit people and businesses to come into this area that can add into that. So I think that it's all part of that approach of, again, making sure that we have those resources here, that we have those things that people want here, that we're continuing to build those, that we're building more of those, that we have an army behind, that's here, that's going to do those types of things. You were just talking to me when we started about like, hey, I want to see more of these types of things in the area with, certain things that you enjoyed when you were in a city atmosphere. And yes, we can absolutely have those things here. So who is going to be the one that helps to get those things here? So I think it's continuing to build up that army, because recruitment is going to be a huge piece of it. I know, our Mayor Brown, City of Wilkes-Barre, has a campaign out there that is recruiting actually for businesses and people to relocate to, our area from outside of the community. That commercial doesn't air anywhere locally. You've never seen it because it's efforts elsewhere. Great entities like Discover and EPA who do a fantastic job at relocation and recruitment and relocating businesses here. I mean, that's what all these things are aimed at. All of our chambers. I give shout outs to all my other chamber partners in the area, because we're all focused on that, of like making this area, really promoting it in its best light. I think collectively under our quality of life pillar at our organization, it's promoting all those things. It's promoting all those people I just talked about, of like, collectively saying like, hey, we got all this great stuff going on here in Northeastern PA. I mean, we're very focused on the area as a whole, because we know that, when we talk about my friends up in Scranton, like, listen, Scranton has a fantastic, they have a great community right now. I mean, they're booming. Pittston is booming. I mean, Hazleton, again, tremendous growth, like Back Mountain, like all these crazy areas. Tunkhannock, I was just there the other day at Wyoming County. So we have so many great things that are happening on all those levels. And when people come here, they don't look and say, I just, I only focus on just Wilkes-Barre as a city. They're going to, especially people that relocate here. They're like, hey, I was out in Scranton last night, or
right.
I was in downtown Pittston for dinner, and went down to Hazleton the other day for this. So we have to look at it like that. And it's definitely an approach that we take, but recruitment is going to be a big part for us to get that next push of people that we want here, and continue to have businesses come in this area. Spark program was great. We actually just ended the Spark program because we successfully opened over 80 businesses in Wilkes-Barre City. That was given to us by the City of Wilkes-Barre.
Can you explain a little bit more about the Spark program?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was a wonderful program that was given to us by the City of Wilkes-Barre. Mayor Brown, they allocated funding to us to be able to help businesses open in the City of Wilkes-Barre for their first and help them with their first year's rent or mortgage. So it was really cool, because it really gives businesses that chance to like get that start on that first year, which is the most critical year. So maintained by my Matthew Pickard at the chamber, who's amazing, and my chamber team there. But 2 years, the program was supposed to go for 3. But because of how successful it was, we had no idea how many businesses we would open, because we never did it before. But
so 80 businesses.
Over 80 businesses open through that, and they're all throughout the City of Wilkes-Barre. So
what was the break?
Cool.
What was the? That's an incredible accomplishment. I mean, I've run a brick and mortar fitness studio. I will tell you, and I won't even begin to say how much I was paying in rent in New York City. It was insane. But that first year, like you said, is very important. I mean, it makes it. I mean, 99% of startups fail. I mean, and again, starting a business is. I mean, it is. Again, not a lot of people answer that higher calling, because it's a really tough thing to do. And I wanted to understand, like, what was the breakdown of the industries that were out of those 80 businesses. How many were healthcare? How many were brick and mortar? I mean, we could definitely use more pizza shops, as you know. I mean, we have there's not a dearth of pizza shops here, but what was the sort of breakdown of the businesses that were given that funding?
All physical locations, which is really cool. So we just have brick and mortar, So we did have a pretty good percentage that was in what we some of our we call them like incubator type buildings, which are like kind of more in that like kind of startup, like growth phase, office mode. I would say that we had probably the largest percentage that we call the traditional brick and mortars that were opening up in physical storefronts. So those would range anywhere from, like you just said, the restaurant to, I think hospitality wise to, retail location, service-based businesses. So we did have a lot of those as well. So I'd say honestly, the breakdown with the last time we looked at it was pretty even keel of like different industries that we represented. So you had some obviously, tech companies that were represented in there as well. So we're kind of, as we finalize that program, we will have some really cool things to share about like kind of what was officially, like what the breakdown did look, because it's something, frankly, I would love to figure out if there's a different way we could find some source of funds to be able to continue that. Cause I think it's a big piece in our community. We talk about relocation and bringing people here, because of the success of that. And obviously we know that there's a need for it. Like there's a lot of people that, I just said, the next generation being the most entrepreneurial we'll ever see. This generation that's coming up, they saw so many challenges. They saw so many things that they really do want to, whether that's starting a business or improving, seeing something and starting a business based on something that they feel like could make an improvement, in their community or in a social way. I think that we definitely want to make sure that, one of our programs is called Wilkes-Barre Connect. And I think it's a free entrepreneurial resource that you can come into, and that we will help you find all the local entrepreneur resources. So programs like that I just talked about, or anything that's available to help you successfully start your business. We want to make sure that we can have as many programs available that there are, so that businesses, and especially this next group, we talk about keeping them here. If we have a lot of entrepreneurs that are going to want to start things in our community, we want to have the right resources for them, because we do want them to stay here and in fact, open those businesses here in Ypres. So
if people don't know what some cool things that have happened in Wilkes-Barre, I'm gonna tell you right now.
Okay.
And so if I say Barre, people say Barra. I mean, my friend Chris Bohinski at PA Live had a whole segment about how do you pronounce it. It's like whatever makes you feel good. But so fun facts: Wilkes-Barre was settled in 1769 and reached the height of its prosperity in the 19th century when coal reserves were discovered nearby. The discovery led to the city being nicknamed the Diamond City. So some really interesting things about this city. The three that really stand out to me is in 1926, Planters Peanuts Company was founded in Wilkes-Barre by two Italian immigrants. Shout out to the Italians. And the company maintained its headquarters in the city until 1961. How incredible. I mean,
we're very proud of Mr. Peanut. Yes.
Mr. Peanut
very proud of him.
Came from Wilkes-Barre. For all of this, going back to sports, Babe Ruth hit one of the longest home runs in history in Artillery Park in Wilkes-Barre.
Very cool.
Go Babe Ruth. I love me Babe Ruth. And this one, which I think most people sort of interact with. I mean, people have nuts, but I think people stream more than ever. But November 8th, 1972, HBO became the birthplace. This Wilkes-Barre was the birthplace of modern cable television programming.
Yeah.
Some incredible things that come from this area,
Absolutely.
And it's like that happened in the past. What is happening now? Like again, with these 80 new businesses that are hoping to find their footing and to scale. I hope that going back to the younger generation of being able to use technology to advocate and to spread the good word. This is why I was telling you before about like my passion alongside Bill for new media. Mm-hmm. How are we using the thing that's in our hands for pleasure to be able to use it for progress when it comes to spreading the word of our local businesses, going to a place, doing a selfie, like you got to check out this place. It's so great. Like that word of mouth, that they call it user generated content. I mean, it speaks volumes. I mean, I've done that we switched with my business from doing traditional, what you would see on TV type ads to like customers literally saying, you got to check this out. Mm-hmm. And that means so much more. So how do we, going back to speaking the language of our future leaders, that's something that's an easy, get these 80 businesses that are all, brick and mortar based businesses. How do we get people to interact with them? How do we like spread the word in the community to get those students or to get the people that are in colleges or people that just, that are just got jobs here to interact and to be like the biggest champions for these businesses, Mm-hmm. I want to be a part of that. That's something that I know that you're only as strong as the people that you surround yourself with. And these businesses and all the businesses that have been here before, the ones that the Spark program helped to fund, they need help. The old way of advertising is not how things are today. That's why we listen to podcasts. That's why we are, we're on social. That is where we get our information. That's how we sort of have a temp check with things. And I would love to see initiatives that are built around new media come to light to help service these incredible people that are behind these businesses.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. So I wanted to go back to, just the beginning again. If you weren't doing what you were doing today, what do you think you would be doing?
That's a tough question.
I know.
Well, I wanted to be a rockette when I was little.
Oh,
I was in dance,
yes.
and I loved tap. And so honestly, that was one of my goals when I was a teenager. But I only grew to 5'2". So if you have to be 5'6" to be a rockette.
That's the minimum. That's You never
know.
Not
5'6".
I mean, look, there's karaoke. I mean, you never know when you're gonna need a high kick, whether you're doing karaoke, whether it's it's a presentation that you need to have a little bit of a little bit of an exclamation in your stuff. But
I love events. So if anyone knows me, my event planning was always a big passion of mine. I still love to do that for any groups I'm involved with. I love that as a part of our chamber. I think it's how I found my love of what I'm doing. So I think definitely doing something in the event realm. Is something that I would be really passionate about. And to your earlier point of helping out, businesses and connecting in that way, I think it's, again, having conversations like we're having today. I think there's so many cool people in this community. The more that I get to talk to people and meet people, and I'm sure you feel the same way, is where I think that's where we're really finding that connectivity. And like your point of you saying, I think businesses struggled so much for the pandemic. I think it was already difficult. I think they were just trying to kind of do what they needed to do to be able to sustain and, make it throughout all those challenges that we had. So I think anything that we can do to kind of help move them forward and collectively, provide those types of things with, entities like us, people like you, and getting our young people involved, because we know that, this is, again, they're on the top of all this technology, and really integrating them into the community and introducing them to these businesses and building those connections. I think that's exactly what we need to do.
We can learn from each other.
Yes,
going back
cool.
to what you're saying about leadership, the face of leadership. There's a natural evolution that needs to take place, and I feel incredibly inspired by seeing how the younger generation thinks and how just the level of maturity and the self-assurance, the things that they care about, and again, the intention behind what they do. I think that's often lost because, again, the values of the past, not that they're bad, but I think that there needs to be a blend of of the sort of new age thinking and also how things have been. I think that there's been great foundation led by the leaders of the past to be able to for us to enjoy the things that we have. But it's just being open-minded and being able to sit alongside people of all ages to come together for the betterment of the community. If you had a message to give to somebody who is, that may have that is thinking about potentially helping this community, somebody that has just moved to this area for education purposes, or they relocated, what is something that you would tell them about why it's important to be here and to help take care of the people that live alongside them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the quotes that I always have on my wall, it's Gandhi quoted, but, to be the change you wish to see in the world. And there's different iterations of that. But I think that's always, that I think one of my pet peeves is when people say to me oh, there's nothing to do here. And I'm like, okay, well, you could be one of those people that says that, or you could be one of those people that makes things to do here. Right. So I think one of the coolest, we talked about it a little bit, but it's I think, you had a group, Dave Pedry, Will Beekman, and Ted Wampel, that people said there's no outdoor concerts here, and they made outdoor concerts here. I mean, I think it's something like that, and then they got, other people engaged with that, obviously, but I think that it's either being on that side or being on the other side. And I guess I would say be on the side of making that happen. And I think anyone can have an opportunity to do that in this area. I think not plugging us to plug us, but like we can help connect you with that. I always say you don't have to, when you reach out to us, it's not like we're going to, solicit you to do anything other than we just want to help connect you in this area. And I think there's obviously a lot of different ways that we can do that, but we can, help to make those introductions on the committees, the boards, all the different types of initiatives that do need that help, just to help you get engaged on that level. So I would say, just get connected, get involved. I mean, there's, obviously now too, with all the options in ways on social media that any of the groups that we talked about or anything that you care about, I guarantee you there's a group here that's doing it and they need your help. So I think connect with us, or connect with anyone that really, again, is involved in any of the different initiatives that we talked about today, any of the other organizations I talked about that are partners in all of this. But I think just to be that change, I know that that's something that, very lucky that my team and I committed to a long time ago, and we've really seen a big shift in that. And I think that we believe that every day. And I know that, it's something that we're going to continue to push forward and believe in. And there's a great group of people that I see that shift of a couple years ago. I might've said, I don't see it yet as far as it seems like now we've really made that shift of, I see more people feeling that way and really joining that than the other group that is kind of still saying, there's nothing to do here. So I always say this, but there's, we could be out probably 8 nights a week and there's 7. So if anyone feels like that, send us a message. We could tell you exactly what's going on in the area. But there's a lot of cool things and certainly want everyone's input and to continue that momentum.
Well, Thoreau said the art of genius is raising the little into the large. And I think that you and your team have done an incredible job to really incubate and really nurture the seeds of growth within this community. And it's a testament to your award that you recently won. Congratulations on that. That's, more than well deserved. And I think that you're definitely an example for a lot of people who may not know where they want to go in their life, but they really are passionate about working with other people to make their community better, to really wrangle the troops for a common goal. And I think that, tested to myself and to Bill and to other leaders like, Jim Alecki in Scranton and Chris Jones here in Dallas. It's people who have done incredible things elsewhere, who are from this area, that really want to see it be the place that it deserves to be. Absolutely. How could people find you online? I know where to find you because I know where you live, so we want to disclose that, yes, but how could people find you online?
Yeah, obviously our chamber website is wyomingvalleychamber.org. So obviously my email and all my contact information is there. And then also LinkedIn or Facebook. So either any of those ways, but usually, I'd say usually anything off of our website, my email is usually the best way to connect with me. So I'm definitely more of like a old school, like one-on-one. I still like to talk on the phone.
Yes.
I like to actually talk to people in that capacity. So I'm big on connecting in that way.
No MySpace account. That's closed.
I don't have a MySpace account, but I did, and I was a huge fan of it. And I was just talking to about the other day. Yes. No, I think my MySpace, I think all of ours are gone, Jimmy, but so I think any of those mediums, but and obviously just also too, stopping at our office. We're right next to Boscov's in the Innovation Center.
Right there in Public Square in Wilkes-Barre. Yeah.
Yep. So, but yeah.
Incredible. Lindsay, it was a pleasure having you on the Stacks, and I'm looking forward to doing wonderful things alongside you and to seeing who follows our lead to help make this area as good as it can be. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everybody.
If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/onthestackspodcast or search the hashtag OnTheStacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.